I hope he goes back to bed.
Okay.
Come on, go back to bed. Go to bed. Go there. Good boy. Go on. Good boy. Okay. All right. He should sleep till 2 now.
All right. Great. Okay. Well, I'm Michael Maloney, and I am the convener of the Urban Appalachian Community Coalition. This is my first recording for the Urban Appalachian Community Coalition Story Project, and I'm interviewing Sondra Saylor, who's part of the Saylor family that is so important to the history of Lower Price Hill. And Sondra, you grew up in Lower Price Hill, is that correct? You were born and grew up there?
Yes, I did. I lived on St. Michael Street for 42 years of my life, the first 42 years of my life.
All right. And you left the neighborhood when?
I moved out of Lower Price Hill in 1992, but I've never left Lower Price Hill.
I know, you're still involved to this day. All right. And you're an Eastern Kentucky family?
My mother was born in Crab Orchard, I guess the largest town to it. Her mother was born in Richmond, Kentucky. So yes.
All right. And is your family related to the Salyers, that Salyersville, Kentucky, that I know it's spelled differently, but I've been told that the Saylors are related to the Salyers, that it's really the same family. Is that correct? Do you know?
Well, my brother Michael Saylor lives in Ross, and he's 10 years older than me. He will be 81 in November, and he has done extensive genealogy, and he's gone back 5 generations, which is pretty much unheard of. And I haven't heard him say anything about the Saylors, Saylor, being connected to the Salyers. Now, there's so many different spellings of names, as you know, Mike. But to answer that honestly this morning, I don't know. I would have to confirm or deny that with my brother, who is the expert. As I've gotten older, I choose not to have to remember everything. It just takes especially when I have go-to people that know way more than me. So I stay in my lane, Mike.
All right. Well, I did see about a 500-page manuscript some years ago that connected your Saylors with the Salyers. So, but we'll maybe confirm that in another interview.
Okay.
I want to ask a bit about your earliest memories of Lower Price Hill as a child and growing up there. If we could talk about that some, what was it like?
Absolutely. I thought it was magical, Mike. I just thought it was absolutely magical. On my street, St. Michael Street, I had so many friends. My very best friend in the world next door was Midge Patrick, and she lived on the 2nd floor of that apartment, which would have been 2123 St. Michael Street. I lived at 2125. On the 1st floor was Marilyn Smith. Across the street was Nancy Head. Next to her was Frida Rankin. Down the street was Norma Mann. On State Avenue was Brenda Jackson. On Burn Street was Mary Lou Mulligan, Gail Cordy. I'm still friends with all of those women who are still alive. I've outlived a lot of the St. Michael Street women, which I have my own theories about why so many of them died before the age of 60, a lot of them with lung issues. But it was magical, Mike. And we didn't stay in. If we went to school, we came home, you had school clothes and you had play clothes, and the two didn't meet. So when you came in from school, you changed into your play clothes. You, at our house, you did your homework right away. You got yourself a snack, and then you could go out and play literally in the streets. A lot of times we had bicycles. We loved when St. Michael Church was closed, because what is now the sanctuary is a wonderful stage for little girls to get up and sing. So you had great acoustics over that in that little concrete nook there. But I had a wonderful childhood. We could walk to 8th and State, usually with someone, and there were so many restaurants. There was Paradise Restaurant, Peter Pan Restaurant, Crystal Kitchen, George's Chili, The Transfer. So if you wanted a chili hot dog, or if you wanted a home cooked meal, you could walk to that within 5 minutes. It was just vibrant. Now, there probably was a darker side of that, but if it was, and when it was, it would usually be on Friday and Saturday night, because as many restaurants as there were, triple the bars. There were bars everywhere. JJ's. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but Jim and Jack's on River Road, the original Jim and Jack's was JJ's bar on the corner of State Avenue and Glenway. And
Now, were the bars and restaurants owned by Appalachians or by German Catholics? Do you recall who owned the businesses in those days?
I don't think neighborhood people no, that's not correct. The Emmons family owned a bar on State Avenue, which would be behind the bank. They owned their own bar. And then Gumbo's out on State Avenue, that was family owned. The Bend Inn, there in the Bend, where the printing place is now, there in the Bend of Glenway. But the beauty shops were owned by women in the neighborhood. And we had
we're talking about the 1950s now.
Yes, well, I was born in 1950, so my best memories start about between 8 and 9 and 10 years old. But I know that one of our extended family members owned the beauty shop. I know that the Emmons owned a bar. The restaurants and the stores, Saul's department store filled up that whole block.
Wow.
They had a 10-cent store and a department store. So you could go into what we call the rich side, where you'd have to have $5 to go in to buy a dress or something. Or you could go into the 10-cent store side and get yourself a candy bar, a little tube of lipstick, notions, maybe some sewing thread, just a little 10-cent store. And Saul Crumbine, I think was his name, Crumbine, and he's buried up off of Anderson Ferry in the Jewish cemetery. So I know he was a Jewish member. Now, the German influence was in the form of the bakeries. And we had 3 bakeries right there in a walking block. We had Winz's Bakery, and I don't remember the other 2, but each one had a specialty. The memories are starting to flood me now. On the corner of Neve and Store Street was a beautiful black storefront that had black glass in it. And the girls would go there often because it was a mirror and you could fix your hair. And I can remember this time of the year, we would be so excited because the name of the grocery was Ritter's. And Bill Ritter owned that. When I moved to Saylor Park 16 years ago, I discovered that Bill Ritter owned a farm on Hillside within walking distance of my house now. And that's where he grew a lot of his own produce. But he would get pomegranates in. And we couldn't wait to go to his store and get those. It was a big treat to get that big pomegranate. And they were so messy, but and they were hard work. But that was something you looked forward to every fall, going into Bill Ritter's store. We had Reeser's Pharmacy. We had two pharmacies. One was at the corner of St. Michael and Neve, and that was the Reeser family, Don Reeser. His father, I don't know what his name was, Mom called him Old Man Reeser, had a dental chair in the back and pulled teeth.
All right.
And
Now, were the Reesers and the Ritters, were they Roman Catholic and part of St. Michael's Parish, or were they Protestant Appalachian? Or what was their background?
The Reesers were definitely Roman Catholic. The Ritters, I don't know their personal life because we didn't go into their groceries as much as other groceries. Our family owned 3 stores in the neighborhood throughout the years. At the corner of Neve and Stabler, the building's gone now, and I believe it's a garden, but it was a 3-story building. And in 1962, in 1960, 59, 60, my aunt, Mrs. Merriman, owned that grocery store. And then she sold it to my uncle, William Pointer, Poynter. And then he sold it to my stepfather. And my mother got married. And we lived on the 2nd floor of 719 Neve Street for 5 years. And they operated that grocery store. Then they closed that grocery store and they started a little secondhand store in there and opened a second grocery store at the corner of Church and St. Michael. I believe that building's gone now too, and it's a garden. Effie seems to leave gardens behind wherever the buildings were.
You mentioned Effie, your mother.
Yes.
And we'll have a section which we talk just about, or mostly about, her work in the neighborhood.
A huge part of my childhood, to get back to your original question, was Euler School. My mom used to say, I could move that girl's bed over there and she would just live in that school. I wasn't a child that hated school. Euler was my magic place. I was the 10th child of Effie's. She had 11 children. She had 6 boys and then me. By the time she had that 10th child, she was exhausted. And so I figured out early on, Mike, that if I got straight A's, I got a lot of attention. I guess if I had to describe myself now, as I'm a lot older and looking back, I have always been a person that wanted to help others. But if I'm being completely honest, there was a little part of me that loved those pats on the back. And I think we all like pats on the back. Yes. I don't think it was narcissistic. I can never say that word. But anyway, I don't think it was that. But I did learn early on that if I got straight A's, I could just about run the school. And my mom just about let me do whatever I want to, because she'd say, oh, that girl's smart. She's got straight A's. I don't have to worry about her.
Well, I had a similar strategy for coping. When I wasn't a little rebel, I was the best little boy in the world. So, and that's the way you got attention.
That's right. We got to do what we got to do, Mike.
Right.
But I loved Euler, and if there was any, as I got older and into the other things, anything that you could join, I could join. I joined Future Teachers of America. I joined Future Farmers of America. I joined Girls Athletic Association. All 85 pounds, 5 foot of me was out there trying to play basketball, Mike. I was in the choir. I was in the talent shows. We had dance lessons. A lot of the children in the neighborhood would have never been afforded tap dance lessons. But we had a lovely lady, Miss Peggy. I couldn't tell you her last name, but I found out later she volunteered her time. And every Wednesday after school, if you wanted to learn how to tap dance, you could get on Oilers stage and tap dance. And then if you were good enough, you got to be in the annual variety show. It wasn't called a talent show because there wasn't a whole lot of talent in a lot of us, but it was magical. We had dances in the gym. We had the swimming pool, the swimming pool was everybody's haven in the summer. Everybody's haven. And the pool would open at 11 and close at 6, and it was drained every night. So you could stay until the last drop of water. And I can just remember laying down in that concrete, and the water would only be about a half inch, and then we'd have to get out and go home. There was never, I don't ever remember being bored. I don't ever remember being bored. If you were bored, I don't remember the kids. Now there were fist fights, and they would always be in Dutch Alley, and Dutch Alley was behind the sanctuary.
Okay.
And I don't know why they called it Dutch Alley, but that alley connected St. Michael Street to Euler, but we weren't allowed to go through that alley. It would be filled with glass a lot. But what we were allowed to do was to walk up St. Michael's steps and go through the garden. And not every child was allowed in that garden. But because of my mother's influence and hard work and respect of the community, her 2 girls could walk through that St. Michael garden every day on their way to school.
Which is still there and part of the Education Matters, Community Matters facility.
Yes, it is. But it was absolutely,
yeah.
It was a magical rose garden back then. And we knew, don't touch those roses, and we didn't. And they're off and on during the growing up, there would be different orders that would come and spend a summer or 2. The Mennonites came and stayed 2 or 3 summers, and they did a lot with the kids in the neighborhood. They set up a projector right there in the parking lot, and kids would be lining the wall and sitting on the ground, and they would show movies. The fire department on the hottest days, on a Sunday or a Saturday, if the pool was closed, on the hottest days, it just seemed like the fire department at 8th and State, they would just choose those times, Mike, to come and, quote, see if the fire hydrants worked. And they'd open those fire hydrants, and I remember they'd make us stand back because the water that first came out was a little rusty. And then when the water was clear, they'd say, hit the street. And you could just hit the street, and that cold water would feel so good because that black tar on the streets was pretty hot if you were barefoot. Nobody wore shoes in the summer. Nobody wore shoes in the summer.
Now,